Good morning, and welcome to the third annual symposium, hosted by the South Carolina Department on Aging, the South Carolina Respite Coalition, and Columbia International University. It is a great day in South Carolina, and I'm so happy that you have joined us. You are going to be listening to fabulous presentations over the next 2 hours, and we're getting ready to start. If you have any questions, please, as always, fill in the chat or in the question and A things. And always, please mute yourself. And now a word from our governor, Henry D. McMaster. Governor McMaster taped a phenomenal greeting for us. And as you know, sometimes there are technical difficulties, and we're just building up the anticipation to hear from Governor McMaster. He has been so supportive of the symposium and our work, trying to bring the faith community together to work on issues of the aging community. The symposium started 3 years ago when Governor McMaster was the lieutenant governor. And at that time, it was before the COVID pandemic. So he was live. But we really are so grateful and appreciative of him taking the time to present us a special, special greeting. Well, while Rachel is working on bringing the greeting for us, I would be very, very honored to move on and present. Oh, here's Rachel. Here's a word from our governor.
I'm delighted that you're having this symposium. We have great people in South Carolina. Many of us are out there still striving and working out there in the arena, while we have others who are getting older and are moving over towards the sidelines. It is important that we do all we can to support and honor those who have brought us to this great place where we are today, and to protect the young ones. And I believe that our churches, our communities of faith, are the perfect people to do this great work. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor McMaster, for those kind words. Governor McMaster has a special relationship with seniors. I don't know if any of you know that his father, John Greg McMaster, lived to be over 100 years old. So he has always showed a lifetime commitment of helping seniors. Now I would like to hear a word from our director, the director of the South Carolina Department on Aging, Connie Munn. And I would like to publicly thank her for the support that she has given the Faith Initiative at the South Carolina Department on Aging. She has always demonstrated a passion for this work. Connie shared with me many years ago that she was instrumental in starting Sumter United Ministries, which is a wonderful program. I'm sure that many of you know about it, in Sumter, South Carolina, that helps seniors and other vulnerable populations. And Connie was instrumental in that. So without further ado, may I present Connie D. Munn.
Good morning, everybody. And Kate, thank you for those kind words. And yeah, it was a blessing for me to be a part of that many years ago in Sumter on United Ministries. But I wanted to start by thanking Kay and Rachel for organizing this symposium for faith-based organizations. This is week 2, and today's symposium topic is especially close to my heart. I was a caregiver for my mother for many years, and we also brought my mother-in-law out of a nursing home to live with us, while still having 2 of our 3 daughters living with us at home in high school. My mother-in-law was confined to a wheelchair, and due to a fall, it kept her immobile, so she needed 24/7 care. She had dementia, so this was challenging for her because she couldn't understand why she couldn't get out of the wheelchair. But she still wanted to be helpful. She was a very fun-spirited lady. She would wheel around in the kitchen trying to help me set the table or help me cook. We were fortunate to have help back then to be able to still go to Sunday school and to church. But we know many families do not have that. And so feeding the spiritual soul is so important to caregivers, especially to hold on to your faith when at times that may be all you have to keep you going. There was a book many years ago that was titled The 36-Hour Day, and it talked about the stresses of caregiving. And I know at times it feels like 36 hours long of caregiving. The data shows us that faith-based organizations play a key role in the mental health of caregivers in the congregations. The stress of caring for your loved one puts caregivers at risk for physical and emotional health problems. Caregivers face significant financial issues as well as work and family problems. The Bible tells us in Micah 6:8, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Caregivers are our angels on earth with wings. They give tirelessly of themselves and in many cases ignoring their own health issues to care for their loved ones. During today's webinar, our goal is to build on your knowledge base about family caregiving and to equip you with the necessary tools to assist you in going back to your faith communities to develop programs for caregiving ministry in your congregations. Thank you for taking the time away to feed your souls today and to learn ways to increase awareness of family caregiving. And I want to thank all the panel here that I just met just a few minutes ago before we started. So thank you too for your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Munn. Again, as I think the old African proverb, it takes a village. And South Carolina has many, many, many faith organizations. Another one of our big, strong supporters is the South Carolina Interfaith Partnership. So now we will hear from Cheryl Nail, the Vice Chair of the Interfaith Partnership of South Carolina.
As Vice Chair of Interfaith Partners of South Carolina, I commend you for dedicating time to further your knowledge of how to support aging and vulnerable populations in your faith community. A statewide organization, Interfaith Partners of South Carolina, or IPSC, brings together people of diverse religious, spiritual, and secular paths throughout our state to cultivate a more harmonious community. Representing 12 different religious and secular paths, we work in solidarity to cultivate relationships of trust, to protect the religious freedom of all, and to act in service with and for one another. Many of the faith traditions that IPSC represents place emphasis on aging and the wisdom that the elderly possess. My faith, Judaism, is no exception. In the Torah, we learn that it is a mitzvah or a commandment to honor the elderly. It says in Leviticus 19:32, "You shall rise before the aged and show deference to the old." Our Midrash, or rabbinical commentary of the Torah, teaches us that, quote, "Everyone who welcomes in an elderly person, it is as if he has welcomed in the divine presence." As such, most Jewish organizations, such as the one that I work for, the Columbia Jewish Federation, have programs and services dedicated to our aging demographic. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, "A test of a people is how it behaves toward the old. It is easy to love children. Even tyrants and dictators make a point of being fond of children. But the affection and care for the old, the incurable, the helpless, are the true gold mines of a culture." Thank you for being a true gold mine of the culture in our state.
Thank you, Cheryl, for those wonderful words. Now it's my honor to present Ms. Melanie Dalton and Shelly Maddox. They are doing a phenomenal job helping seniors with one of their #1 unmet needs, transportation. They're going to tell us about a wonderful, wonderful collaborative that's going on in the Richland County, Lexington County area. Take it, Melanie.
Thank you, Kay. Good morning, everyone. Change the world one life and 1 mile at a time. This is the mission of the new volunteer driver program, SeniorRIDES of South Carolina. So for those of you who attended the Faith and Community United to Serve Symposium that was held last August, August 2019, you may remember that two presenters spoke to you about transportation assistance programs that are available here in the Midlands. I, Melanie, presented the AARP Ride at 50 Plus program, which is powered by Feoenix Mobility Rising and is a one-stop shop for transportation options in Richland and Lexington counties. Riders simply either call us, they click into a website, or they tap on our app to find and book local transportation options, enabling these passengers to ride safely, efficiently, and affordably to get to appointments, work, shopping, and more, all without having to drive themselves. The second presenter was Reverend Ken Taylor, of the pastor of the Turner Memorial AME Church. He followed my presentation and told us about SeniorRIDES of Lexington, a volunteer driver program available in West Columbia and in Lexington for seniors in need of transportation assistance. Now, facilitated by Kay, who is the program manager at the South Carolina Department on Aging, Reverend Taylor and I have found a wonderful synergy. Our two groups are now working together in partnership to amplify our ability to serve the community. Feoenix, the company that Shelly and I work with, supplies innovation and infrastructure to power a volunteer-led transportation network. And Reverend Taylor provides deep roots in our community and a following of committed people guided by faith to eliminate suffering and to provide transportation services to those in need. Through SeniorRIDES of South Carolina, we pair dedicated volunteers with people in need of transportation, allowing them to access medical care, groceries, church, and much more. As we relaunch the AARP Ride at 50 Plus program, very soon now, I put in my notes late 2020, but we're hoping for next week. That's what we're working towards. With new safety procedures for both drivers and passengers, SeniorRIDES of South Carolina will be a provider of choice for those in need of transportation assistance. And so as you can see, Shelly has put up on the screen for you, should you know yourself or should you know anyone else who would be interested in learning more about becoming a volunteer with this program, please visit volunteerdriver.org or call us at that number 833-653-6544. And I'll ask Shelly to put up the other screen one more time, which shows you how to access our platform for, for people who need drivers, calling us at 888-851-2131. Go into aarp.org/Ride Columbia to find us on the web. Or as you can see at the bottom right-hand side of that slide, that's what our icon looks like. So please find us in either the Apple or the Android app stores and download the app. And if you're at all familiar with using Lyft or Uber, anything like that, it follows basically the same process. Thank you for this opportunity, Kay. We really appreciate it. And Rachel, for a quick update on our program here in Richland and Lexington counties.
Thank you so much, Melanie and Shelly, for sharing with us. I don't want to steal your thunder, but I would like to announce that they have a phenomenal new partnership with the Prisma Hospital System, which will allow them to provide transportation for seniors to get to their medical appointments. So we're very, very excited about that. And as some people says, a lady says on television, just watch this space to get more about it. So thank you, Shelly and Melanie. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the moderator of the panel, who's going to introduce us to a number of phenomenal programs that cover the 46 counties of the state of South Carolina. I'd like to introduce Scott R. Adams, the Dean of the Columbia International University School of Business. Scott has had over 30 years in law and management, where he worked for a number of companies and law firms throughout the world. He worked at Disney. Yes, that Disney World in Orlando, Florida, as well as Dow Corning and many other places. Scott also served as the South Carolina Ambassador for Economic Development, appointed by Governor Haley. In that capacity, he was instrumental in bringing Amazon to Lexington County, and thanks to Scott's work, thousands of people in this area have jobs. So we really owe a debt of gratitude to Scott for that work. And finally, something that that is really important, that he's in the Christian Business Council, which I know is something, he's an advisor to that group, and I know that that is near and dear to his heart. Without any further ado, my dear friend, Scott Adams.
Well, thank you very much, Kay, and welcome to all from the campus of Columbia International University in Columbia. And we were privileged for the past 2 years to host this event. And God willing, we are looking forward to having you visit with us next year for the 4th annual symposium, and we just pray and look forward that that'll be able to happen. Kay, I want to thank you for the work that you do, not only on behalf of seniors, but in putting together this symposium. And I can truly say that discussions regarding this symposium started maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And Kay has been intimately involved in all aspects of the symposium for all years, and was instrumental in the very first program. And I don't know anybody who is more committed to seniors and providing assistance and care to them than my good friend, Kay Hightower. And it's a real privilege and honor for me and for Columbia International University to be a part of this. Today's session is on faith and caregiving, a spotlight on innovative programming events. And what a wonderful topic that is. And we have some terrific panelists today who I'll give a brief introduction of, and they will tell you a bit more about themselves. Our first panelist is Stan Means. Stan believes we live in a culture that worships youth and shuns the aged. After his grandparents passed, Stan began adopting seniors, spending time with them and helping as needed. He went to a Christian college where his community service work often involved visiting seniors in local care communities. In 1984, Stan joined the staff of an upstate church, directing a senior ministry that was housed in that church. 2 years later, he made it an independent ministry. Today, through strategic online partnerships and a free app, Elder Source Senior Ministries is providing free Christian materials to over 250,000 seniors in care homes across the US and Canada. There is no fundraising. Stan says the ministry belongs to God and God will provide. Stan has written a free booklet, Who is My Neighbor?, that can be found on the Elder Source Senior Ministries website, which is www.eldersourceinfo.org, www.eldersourceinfo.org. The booklet is a church-based 5-step plan for senior in-reach and outreach. Stan says the booklet is his way of giving his ministry away. Stan is from Elder Source Senior Ministries in Greenville, South Carolina. And Stan, we welcome you this morning. Our next panelist will be Mary Tutterow, and she is the author of The Heart of the Caregiver study series, which is written for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the responsibilities and emotions of caring for someone with disabilities, chronic illness, or age-related issues. Mary has recently added teaching videos and leader guides, as well as the latest study curriculum, The Peaceful Caregiver. And boy, I know I could sure use that. Mary and her husband, Wynn, have 2 adult children. They live in Charleston, South Carolina. Their daughter, Mary Addison, has cognitive and physical challenges and an active seizure disorder. They also cared for Wynn's mother through cancer and dementia. A former anchorwoman and marketing executive, Mary now leads online and in-person small groups for caregivers, as well as workshops, webinars, and retreats. Mary has been featured on numerous podcasts, vlogs, and talk shows. To learn more about Mary, visit www.theheartofthecaregiver.com, and I'll repeat that, www.theheartofthecaregiver.com, and that's all one word. Or you can go to www.marytutterow, which is MaryTutterow.com. And I'm sure Kay will have all of this posted on the site at the conclusion, so you'll be able to go out and access this information. We also have with us today Dill from Leeza's Care Connection in Lexington, South Carolina. Many of you may be familiar with Leeza's Care Connection. It was founded as a ministry in the vision of Leeza Gibbons, who many of you knew was a national TV, or is a national TV personality. And they do a terrific job in Lexington helping those who are dealing with those afflicted with Alzheimer's and other senior issues. Leeza's Care Connection has truly been a blessing to the senior community, and certainly is an asset to Lexington County, and Kina will tell you a bit about her. I think Rachal Hatton has already been mentioned. Rachal is with the South Carolina Respite Coalition, and together with Kay has been engaged in putting together this seminar and this particular program. And the South Carolina Respite Coalition is on the front lines of dealing with senior issues. And Rachal just does a terrific job with them. And then finally, we have Cynthia Williams, who is, and Cynthia will tell you a bit more about herself. She's from Sumter. So we have Charleston, we've got Greenville, we've got Lexington, and we've got Sumter. So we kind of cover the state. And she is with probably a number of organizations, St. Paul United Methodist Church Breakroom, and others. And Cynthia will tell you a bit about what she is doing. And I don't know if there's other panelists, Kay, but if there are, they can introduce themselves. So what I will do is, as the moderator, is just try to do a better job than the presidential and vice presidential moderators have done. And we'll keep it civil. And no talking over anybody and or interruptions, but we do want to have a very lively and active and interesting panel. And let me turn it over. Let me start with Stan.
Scott, we missed Bryce Holman.
Bryce Holman. Bryce Holman.
Your student.
How could I miss Bryce Holman?
I can't believe it, Dr. Adams. It's all right.
You know, Bryce, apologies. You aren't on my, you are you're on my prayer list. You're always on my mind. You were not on my list of panelists. And Bryce has a special place with us. He is a graduate of Columbia International University. He was a business major. He has been active in ministry throughout his time at Columbia International University. He is presently at Mount Horeb United Methodist Church in Lexington, South Carolina, where he works with middle school youth. And he also has a number of ministry initiatives that he is involved with. In fact, someone came in just last week and asked me, they said, I'm working with Bryce Holman on a new ministry initiative. And I said, that doesn't surprise me, because Bryce, you know, he's probably involved in dozens of ministry initiatives. If there's a need, Bryce is going to be there. And thank you, Bryce, for being part of this. I got to say, I love your shirt, Just Jesus. You can, like, there you go. Let everybody see that. And so welcome, and welcome to all the panelists. And so I think we have everybody, Kay. And we'll go back to Stan. Stan, if you want to start and tell us about a bit about what you're doing with innovative programming.
Okay, it really came more out of necessity. You know, Elders Source Senior Ministries started as a ministry of visitation of seniors and giving Christian materials to seniors. I leveraged that when I realized if I could combine my business education training with ministry, I could accomplish more. So I realized there were these people called activity directors that the government required these people in care centers to provide daily activities and socialization to seniors. So here I come in and I can give these activity directors these Christian materials that are a blessing to these seniors. And all of a sudden I found out that this Stan was this hero because their budgets were so low, they couldn't afford to do it. Fast forward, everything's online now. And through COVID, giving is down, but we are reaching more seniors through online and through partnerships than all of the 40 years history of this ministry. My philosophy is to give it away. As you can tell, I'm no longer a young man. I was when I started, but I'm no longer now. Where I want to give it is where it belonged all along. It was started in a church, but parachurch ministries are great. They're great. We're the medical spiritual specialist. But God gave ministry to the church. And I want to see churches to come along. First, come alongside their own seniors. If you look at what's happened since COVID started, we've got seniors who for months have been in solitary confinement. In most of the care facilities, up until recently, they haven't even been allowed out of their room. I know a couple in Pennsylvania that moved into an assisted living facility about 2 years ago. The husband was moved to the memory care unit on the bottom floor while the wife stayed in the second floor. It wasn't until last week that husband and wife were able to see each other, the first time since March. So we can get a clear understanding of what it is like or what it's been like for these seniors to be in their room week after week, month after month. But what about those who are in their homes? And they're afraid. They're afraid to go out. Are the churches helping? Can I have your permission to be cynical for a moment? I was in an assisted living place in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I knew the activity director from past years. She said, I want you to meet one of my residents. She's an artist. Assisted living, so it was an apartment. The lady had end-stage Alzheimer's. Her beautiful artwork, hand-painted paintings all over the apartment. She had the staff waiting on her from the assisted living, but she also had 2 private nurses around the clock at her bedside. My cynicism, I said to the activity director, I said, I bet her pastor comes and visits her, doesn't he? Did you see through my cynicism? The silence is preaching, isn't it? God didn't call us to service that benefits us. He called us to give our life away and to serve others. That booklet that you mentioned that's on the website, it's built around the story of the Good Samaritan, whom the religious leaders passed by. It was the most unexpected person, the man from Samaria, who helped. A lot of good has come out of COVID. One of the good things that I see is it has put a massive spotlight on the needs and the vulnerability of the aged. And I am hoping and praying that our churches would rise to the occasion.
Thank you. Cynthia, following Stan's discussion of the involvement or the need for the churches to get more involved, what's your experience in some churches? And you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
There you
Good
are.
morning. Thank you so much. I am from St. Paul United Methodist Church, and we're actually in King Street, South Carolina, not too far from Sumter, but we're in King Street. And
Apologies.
that's okay, that's fine. And so I just want to respond. Thank you for calling me right behind Stan, because I wanted to just yell out and say, yes, Stan, yes, we are here. We are helping. So let me just share our experience. We have, as a faith caring, concerned community, and with the blessings of meeting Kay and Rachel and getting involved, we have responded to a need prior to COVID, and then I'll share with you what we're doing in COVID. We responded to the need of realizing that it's not what we have in life, but who we have in our lives that matter. And we recognize that to whom much is given, much is required. So the elders have given so much to us. They have been our mentors. They have been our teachers. They have been our guiding forces. And for this season in their lives, they need more love. And what an opportune place. It just was a God moment, that opportunity presented, and we were able to pull together with the help of the Department of Aging and with Respite Coalition in the grant that we've developed, God's Parlor. And God's Parlor is the place where those persons who are caring for the elders, the loved ones of our community, they are the people on the choir, they are the ushers, they are the worship leaders, they are the musicians. And because they're challenged all week, we have the wonderful opportunity of saying, we'll just come and get mom. We'll pick her up if you need us to pick her up. We'll bring her to church on Sunday. You just come and relax and worship God, because your spiritual walk is important. And so we in God's Parlor found our natural place to help those persons to continue with their lives in their spiritual walk. And so we are a congregation that is blessed to have a team of people who with different experiences. I myself have cared for aging grandmothers in the plural sense, for community persons, and those persons on our team naturally came together and comforted our congregation by saying, we will help you with mom, we will help you with auntie. And so what we did, that was our before COVID, and what we're doing now in COVID is that we're making conscious efforts for telephone calls. And I'm telling you, when we call, there are times that we're just on the phone and we can't get off the phone because grandma's got to tell us all the things that happened since the last phone call, and she's got to tell us, I mean, just everything. The phone calls are just complete and loving. And when you do have opportunity to go to the home, because we do take food, and so we've just had a time that we just say, what do you need from the store? Let me pick it up for you and bring it by. And so we're loving up on those persons. We don't go in, we'll leave it outside, but the fact that we can call and say, we're on our way, did you forget anything else? And have that done for them. So to whom much is given, much is required. And those persons, the goals that I heard Ms. Bunn talk about earlier, that they are the goal of our communities, they are the goal of my life. And because of that, we must continue to be with them and to resource them in any way possible. We've also reached out and become reaching for partners in our community. So we have partnered with the Vital Aging of Williamsburg County, where Mr. Welsh is our director and Ms. McCrae is our deputy director, and looking for Waccamaw Regional Planning Council, because it is something that we realize we need partners. We need partners to do those things that we can't do. We can't stay open all day, even once we come back in, but we do know that there are resources within the community that can help with that. So we are sharing and we are caring as God's place provides a safe place for our spiritual growth to continue. So thank you so much, Department of Aging and Respite Coalition, for your assistance in our ministry.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's certainly, you and Stan both mentioned the challenges of programming and assisting during the time of COVID. And certainly, Kina, you probably have some very unique issues with the population that you serve with respect to those who are unable to visit physicians or leave the home. So Kina, some of the challenges you have over at Leeza's Care Connection.
Yes, thank you all for having me today. I'm so glad to be here in such great company. We are a small nonprofit located just outside of Irmo. So even though we are located in Lexington County, we do a lot with Richland County as well and surrounding counties. All of our services are free of charge. We help family caregivers that are coping with chronic illnesses like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. These are caregivers that outside of the pandemic are already feeling physically and emotionally exhausted. They're depleted. They feel invisible and overworked and certainly underappreciated, right? We've seen outside of the pandemic caregivers that come into our center, and we average about 250 a week. Outside of the pandemic, of course, but they're under chronic stress and financial strain. They typically go on to develop their own illnesses that are chronic, and we've even witnessed firsthand many caregivers die before their loved one. So the pandemic certainly has increased those challenges, but we know from research that when we care for the caregiver and help them better prepare and manage their daily caregiving challenges, we do empower them to become better and healthier caregivers, which leads to better outcomes for not only them, but their care receivers as well. So whether a family is maybe just learning of a new diagnosis, or perhaps they've been caring for a while and they're nearing a breaking point, we can help. We provide family consultations, and we continue to do that now, in person, on the phone, by Zoom. We offer lots of programs typically at our center, but now they are all being offered virtually by Zoom, Facebook Live, and YouTube. Our services include caregiver support groups and grief support groups. We have 14 each month, so there's still a lot out there even during the pandemic. We do have weekly educational workshops, from legal and financial topics to illness and self-care, you name it, we offer it. And outside of the pandemic, we offer lots of wellness activities, movement and creative classes like chair yoga and Tai Chi, drumming, things to help them manage that stress level. And we also have a free weekly respite care program. Unfortunately, this has stopped for the pandemic, but we do look forward to picking that up. It does give caregivers a break, a few hours each week. We're particularly delighted to be a part of this event because we're in the process of developing a program to help equip churches with the tools to support their own faith-based communities. We think it makes a lot of sense to partner with these communities because we can't be everywhere, but churches typically are in every community. So our goal is to really give them the resources and tools to help reduce the stigma associated with dementia and better help families in need and reach more people.
It's wonderful, and at the end of this, I do want to take the opportunity and let people know how they can connect with Leeza's Care Connection. And that kind of brings us to Mary. You certainly are, have not only, been through these issues personally, but you provide so many resources to others who are engaged in caregiving. What are some of the takeaways and, tips and helpful advice that you can provide for those who are in the care giving area right now? And this is to Mary.
Connection, connection, connection.
There you are. Okay.
That's it. My husband and I started doing this caregiving thing about 28 years ago. And then in the middle of caring for this daughter who had critical daily bombs going off of 500 seizures and having half of her brain removed and living in hospitals and all that. Then we took in he's an only child, we took in his mom through cancer and dementia. And I literally had an emotional and spiritual breakdown. And I find now that we have this ministry, that's the story for a huge majority of the 600 million caregivers worldwide, is they're losing faith, they're angry at God. It's affecting their marriage, it's affecting how they raise their other children, it's affecting other relationships with friends, staying connected in community. And so on the floor in a hospital, what the Lord was giving me for my own comfort and to help me when I cried out, save my marriage, save my personal sanity, save my faith. And he told me to start sharing it with other people. And I did about 15 years ago. And people were so hungry for it that they kept coming back to my group over and over again. And then they were taking it to their churches. And then soon we published it. And then a publisher found us. And then videos were made. And now we have more than 200 groups going on at any given time, live and online, of caregivers of all kinds, because what makes our group so innovative is it isn't about the disease or disability, it's about your heart as the person who's had to give up everything and lay down your life to serve others. And you can't do it without a living connection with the Holy Spirit and putting your hand in the hand of Jesus. And so we've created a tool, which is workbooks and videos and stuff that churches and groups like Keena's group with they've used it, and I know Cynthia, I think your church has used it too, and there's a lot of people that are using it as a tool, much like divorce care, grief share, you know, Celebrate Recovery. This is a huge family issue. And it's not just affecting people who are taking care of the elderly. Where we are getting a tremendous amount, and Bryce, you and I need to talk, is in special needs ministry. I work with Lakewood Church, and they have something called Champions Clubs that go all over the world, because it's not enough for a family to get 2 hours on a Sunday. These parents need to be connected with other parents who know what it's like to almost lose your health, your family, your finances, everything. And to learn how to lean on Jesus, and to learn how to lean into the power of the Holy Spirit that's available. And what we're seeing through this innovation, I mean, it really is, there are lots of other books and helpful content for people, spiritual content, but what we're doing speaks specifically into resentment and guilt and loss of faith. And I don't like my husband anymore. And am I still married if my husband doesn't remember my name and remember that we're married? You know, I mean, these are really hard, spiritual, deep faith questions that are tearing our families apart. And our families have been invisible to the church, just like Stan was saying. We have been so invisible to the church. Not just the people like my daughter who are in the wheelchair, or my mother-in-law who had the cancer and dementia, but those of us who are like Simon of Cyrene, who are carrying someone else's cross. And we're getting all bloodied by it. And we're carrying this incredibly heavy burden. And we need to be ministered to, and yet we are just so invisible. And the pain is tremendous. But with regard to the caregiving crisis, when you can minister to the people who are doing the caring and remind them that they have been chosen by God to do this high and honorable calling, the very calling of Jesus, suddenly the care shifts. It's no longer this horrific, terrible thing that's been done to me that I have to take care of my mother. It's an honor. I've been called by God. I've been endowed with the power of the Holy Spirit to do this very calling of Jesus. And it's changing what's happening in homes. It's changing what's happening in families dramatically. It really is. The Lord is in this work. It's not my story. It's not about me. It's His words about what it means to lay down your life and to be chosen to care and serve. And so we believe it's innovative because there really is nothing else like it out there that's a tool in the hands of the church. And it's growing, and we are praying that the Lord will take it forth. I'm kind of like you, Stan. He's my shark. No, I don't know how to do this. I'm just a mom who's here with my daughter in the next room having seizures. You know, my husband has to stay home from work so that I can do this. But he's spreading the word, and we've got groups all over the world. And we're hoping by doing things like this, so thank you, Kay, that we can spread it to more faith communities and churches and organizations like Leeza's Caregiving Connection, and things that will use this tool to really change outcomes for the people that they're caring for, as well as for the family members.
Thank you. Wow, that's I got goosebumps sitting here listening to that. It's I wish I had that recorded and I could play that back to so many people.
You do. It is recorded.
Yes, this is being recorded, and I am going to play that back. Bryce, you are part of on the ministry staff of what I believe is the largest United Methodist Church in South Carolina, if not one of the largest United Methodist churches in the Southeast. And what an opportunity to minister. And, you know, as you've been listening, we've heard a lot about, you know, the church needing to come out and be more engaged in caregiving. Two questions for you, Bryce. How are you doing that at Mount Horeb? And particularly when you deal with young people, you know, when we talk about caregiving, we focus a lot on adults, adults caring for those in need. But it also has an effect on younger people, and certainly there are a lot of younger, teenagers that are caring for elder adults and those that have special needs. And so how do you deal with those, Bryce, and some of the observations that you have?
Yeah, that's a huge question. So I definitely want to preface everything that I'm going to say with a few things. The first of which is, as Dr. Adams said, I am on staff at Mount Horeb United Methodist Church right now. I just actually moved out of youth ministry into a part-time role as pastoral intern, which gives me the opportunity to pretty much learn all of the different departments within our church and just how we're set up as a staff. But with that, over the last 1.5 years, 2 years, I've been working with youth. I've seen a lot of things within the youth ministry program we have here at Mount Horeb, many of which have been negative things in their lives that they themselves have needed care given to them. But as Dr. Adams just highlighted as well, a lot of it has been they have family members who they are seeking the best care for as well. So basically how we're set up at Mount Horeb, just kind of an overview perspective, 30,000-foot view. We have a congregational care department within our church. The church website, I will pop into the chat as soon as I'm finished talking so you can view it yourself if you'd like. But we have a congregational care pastor here. Her name is Emma Murphy, phenomenal woman of God. She's 26, just a few years older than me, a recent graduate of seminary, but she has done an absolutely amazing job getting our people connected, those that need care themselves, whether it's a physical need, an emotional need, a mental, or even a spiritual need. The ways that we usually go about that is we have a whole team, like I mentioned. So she's the leader of that team. I tend to sit in on the meetings on Tuesdays. I make some phone calls to some of our gentlemen in our congregation. And basically what happens is we have a 1 month, a 3 month, a 6 month, and a 12-month checkup period that we keep track of on a spreadsheet that we all have access to. And that's for those going through grief. So those that need caring for based on a loss of some kind that's taken place. That's really what we hone in on congregational care. We have prayer requests that come in every single day, multiple times a day, from people within our congregation that call one of our staff members at the church and say, hey, can you pray for myself, pray for someone in my family? A lot of those prayer requests, from what I've seen, have been very, very heavily focused on, I am in a position where I am being called upon by God, as Mary mentioned, to care for this person in my life. How can you as a church equip me to do so? And so some of the ways that we do that, honestly, the biggest way that we've done that throughout COVID, but also before COVID, is simply checking in on these people. A lot of the people that have prayer requests that they send into our church that, hey, we need care, a lot of these people are getting the care from elsewhere. They're calling our church to see if there's any resources that we have that could enhance that care. And so we do send out certain booklets that I know of. I don't know the exact name of the booklets that we do send out. We send those out on a pretty consistent period, just like I mentioned for the 1, 3, 6, and 12-month follow-up that we have for grief. Grief. We tend to send out booklets that help people strategically in the area that they're grieving. For those that need care consistently, our congregational care team before COVID did a fantastic job of visiting those people, checking in on those people, whether that be a text message, email, phone call. Everything that we do is very, very intentional. And the intentionality behind it is on a time basis. And what I mean by that is we are not just checking in with these people once to check off that we did so, and then we're moving on to the next name and throwing out the previous one. Instead, we as a congregational care team, and honestly, we as an entire staff here in our own ministry departments, are being as intentional as possible by not just calling this person once or visiting this person once, but making a note to check in on this person. How are they doing? Is there a physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual need that we could be meeting as the church? Or is this something that we simply lift up in prayer and trust that the care they're currently getting will suffice? So that's all I know of our congregational care department. Again, I'm not the leader of that department nor have much experience in it. But when it comes to youth, as Dr. Adams mentioned, I do have a little bit of experience. And what I've noticed that I kind of mentioned when I first started speaking a few minutes ago was I think a lot of our youth, in our church at least, they have very close family members who are receiving quality care, maybe outside of Mount Horeb, from a family member or a caregiving service of some kind. but they want to take the next step in their faith by trying to figure out, how can I be a tangible light for this person in my family who's receiving care? So for instance, we as a church focus very, very heavily on youth ministry. What this looks like week in and week out is a Wednesday night programming for middle school students and a Sunday night programming for high school students. A lot of the topics that we talk about are obviously going to be directed towards the students themselves. That's who we are trying to get to receive the messages that we're giving them. But in doing so, a lot of the topics that we're discussing, though they are relating directly to the student, what I've seen firsthand, whether I'm the one preaching it or whether I'm just sitting and listening to the messages, is it sparks something within the students themselves to say, I don't want to just receive a message about how God cares for me and keep it within my own heart. I instead want to take the next step in my faith and go and share that very practically, very tangibly with someone that is in need, whether that's someone that's in need in my 6th grade classroom that is on the same level as me, or whether that is someone in need that is in my family or a close friend's family, a senior possibly that is in need. How can I meet those needs? And again, I personally don't have too much experience with the whole congregational care side of meeting some of the needs within our congregation, other than simply checking in on them. I know that the needs are met, and I know that youth want to be involved. And that honestly is something during this COVID season that I think we've been very heavily focused on, is how can we connect our younger generation with the generations above them to meet the needs both that they have, but also to fulfill them through the power of the Holy Spirit. So this is kind of an overview of what we do at Mount Horeb in terms of meeting people's needs.
Thanks, Bryce. Certainly there's a lot of resources that have been mentioned today, the heartofthecaregiver.com that Mary has, and eldersourceinfo.org that Stan has. And it's just terrific to see a church and a program that's building up young people to be engaged in elder care and to, as you use the term, equip them to be able to be caregivers. And if Rachel is, Rachel, you out there?
I'm here.
It's there. Bryce mentioned resources and equipping, and certainly the South Carolina Respite Coalition is just a wealth of resources, including Lifespan and others. What are some of the programs that you have that can assist in this area? What are some of the innovative things that you're doing with respect to care?
Great. So we are a statewide organization that works with family caregivers across the lifespan. And our whole focus is on promoting respite. And respite is something that's, when we think of respite, we think of family caregivers needing resources so that they can take a break. But what we often fail to realize is that it's a whole network of care. So the people who are providing care are often informal volunteers, or they're professional healthcare providers. And so, one of the things I wanted to bring to this conversation is that our work with the faith community throughout our history has been helping them develop programming and providing technical assistance and support and information on having, say, one-day respite events, or hosting a summer camp that's inclusive for care receivers so that caregivers can have a break. And a lot of the, like Mary was saying earlier, a lot of the issues related to caregiving are universal. And so it's true of caregivers, whether their care receiver is their child with disabilities, or if it's their spouse in the midlife area, or they're caring for a parent. It's often the same issues that are in their heart and in their lives, and that they're facing as servants providing care. And so I also really, our origins in South Carolina as a respite coalition were often born. One of our co-founders is a minister, and so our focus has always been heavily on how to assist the faith community in having wider community connections. And so a lot of our focus has been on helping with the Breakroom partnerships and helping them bring in other community sources. And that'll be a focus that we're going to continue in the next several years. And we're just really grateful for all of the people that are on the panel today who are partners of ours that we've worked with in the past. So, those are just some of the activities that we do. And so the Breakroom project, Cynthia and God's Parlor, is one of 7 in the state that we work with or will be working with. We have a few that, because of COVID-19, haven't begun yet. And we really work with them to help them build the internal support for volunteers and build the space and find and recruit families to participate and make sure that they have the capacity to be able to serve in that manner and, do all the technical support for that. So that's one of our more recent activities, and we have those around the state, and, we'll continue with that in the future. So I think those were the big highlights that I wanted to meet today. But, we also work with training and provider training, and we've done trainings with faith communities around the state to talk about caregiving issues and respite-related issues with their congregations. And so we're available to do that. And we're happy to speak with any faith communities who might have questions about how they can begin special needs ministries and have events. One of the things that we have worked with Mount Horeb in the past on is we've provided vouchers to some of their caregivers so that they could have respite breaks. And so I know that you all have had special events in the past for respite related activities and enrichment activities for families. And one of the things I always say about respite too is it's good for the whole family. And Bryce, I think, did a really good job of highlighting how it is an intergenerational whole family affair, and caregiving impacts the entire family. And so oftentimes we work with caregivers who are providing care for their child with a disability and a parent with a disability, because most caregivers are providing care for a long period of time for many people, and it impacts every area of their life. So thanks, Bryce, for bringing that into focus. There's also something special I was hoping Bryce would be able to talk about, and that's the Our Night to Shine program, which I just absolutely love. And so
good.
Yeah, I hope you'll talk about that for a few moments.
Yeah, I can go ahead and talk about it now since you bring it up. So our special needs program that Michelle Hunt does an absolutely killer job running at Mount Horeb is something that we started a while back. But one of the highlights that Rachel just mentioned was Our Night to Shine. This is something that I had personal firsthand experience with only this past February. That was the first time I was able to volunteer with that event. This is a one-night event. Some of you may be familiar with this, but a lot of churches will host it. It's through the Tim Tebow Foundation. And essentially what happens is it is a prom that is put on for all of the special needs students that are both within our church, but also just within our community here in Lexington, Irmo, Columbia area. Shandon Baptist in Columbia is also a host. I think we're the two main hosts around here. But so this event draws, hundreds and hundreds of special needs students. It allows the families to either view it from afar, see the excitement on their child's face, but also just gives them a break, as Rachel highlighted as well. And so this event is sponsored by the Tim Tebow Foundation. Basically, the students come. They have a buddy, which I got the privilege of being to one of our fantastic female students in our program in February. And the buddy is basically the date to the prom for the student. And there is a massive dance party that breaks out for the majority of the event. But dinner is served, and the buddy is basically in charge of making sure, first and foremost, that this child is staying safe, is being all right, is getting their needs met. But most importantly, having the time of their life. And it was absolutely incredible to be there and be a part of this event. It was definitely the highlight of my year, 100%. I tell people that all the time, that arguably this is the best event that we do at Mount Horeb in any of our ministries all year long. I was hoping Tim Tebow was going to show up. He tends to make appearances at certain Night to Shines across the country, and even outside of the United States now. So it's an incredible event. I believe they have a website that's www.nightttoshine.com. It might be through Tim Tebow's foundation website as well. But if you don't know what Night to Shine is, and this is the first time you're hearing about it, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to look into it. If you know someone close to you that has a special needs student in their family, this would be a huge highlight for their entire year to be a part of this event. So definitely encourage you to check that out.
Thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Rachel. It's you know, when you just look across the spectrum of how care needs are delivered, it really does affect the family as a unit, as well as has been underscored. We really do need to raise up more young people to be able to help and provide the type of care that's required. Let me go back to Stan, and we all sit around and we're talking about care, and we have our podcasts and programs like what Mary has, and Stan, you have your resources. But what are some of the things that we can do better, both maybe as a church, as a state, as individuals? What are some of the things when we look at caregiving that just kind of across the board we could do better? Any thoughts on that, Stan?
Random reply. I am on the South Carolina Advisory Council on Aging. I'm in my 8th and final year, and I have never felt that council is as strong and productive as it is now. We're doing some amazing things, and part of that amazement to me is hearing the stories of what's going on outside of government. Your question's a little bit difficult for me to answer. Let me go around the barn to get a personal story. I appreciate the comments on caregivers. I was a caregiver for my wife for 7 months. It started with a brain aneurysm that burst, and it was 7 months of hell on earth. And God answered my prayer by taking her home. I've said that my brain is now like a computer board that got overheated, and there's circuits that just don't connect anymore and don't work. What can we do better? I am so thankful for churches and organizations that look after the caregiver. I didn't have that. I did have limited family, but it just took time. Another thing that we can do better from a church side is when we get to that senior stage in life, we've had the opportunity to learn so much about life. We have so much perspective on things. I wish our society and wish our church honored seniors to the point where they would go to the retired businessmen and say, I'm thinking about this business idea. What do you think? You've been a deacon in our church for 40 years. What do you think about this issue? It's not just loving our seniors and respecting them. It's embracing them with the paths they've walked, good and painful. Respecting. I'd like to see a respect for our aging.
Mary, same question to you. And again, Stan, for the years you've spent working on the commission, that's terrific. Thank you for that. All of us in the state, thank you. Mary, your thoughts on, you've another one, you provide a lot of resources that kind of like it's the mortar between the bricks that's out there. What are some of your observations on what can we do both as a church, as a state, as individuals? Your thoughts.
Claim it and name it and talk about it and bring it to the forefront, because just like we've done it with divorce, just like we've done it in the church with addiction, we need to say that this is an issue, and make it a headline, because probably one of the biggest problems is that the people like myself who are taking care of their mother-in-law or their daughter don't want to say to anybody, I can't handle this. It's taking care of my own daughter. It's taking care of my mother-in-law. And I'm sitting there struggling in a hole. I can't tell you how many people come to our groups and say, I thought I was alone. And so I think we need to make a federal case out of this. And I know with regard to like the caregiving crisis and what are we going to do about direct care service providers and all that, that has taken a big step. But I believe the church is the group that should step up and really make a case for, we see you, we know you're out there, we have something for you, you're not alone, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, and come in. Because they're not coming in because they're terrified of their feelings and believe they're unworthy, and that God is angry at them for wanting to hit their mother-in-law with dementia. But these feelings are real. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from people who say, I'm getting ready to kill my loved one and commit my own suicide. I can't do this anymore. And, Stan, your confession of, that your wife went home to be with the Lord because it was living hell. There are people who live with that for years on end and are ashamed to say that they feel that way. And I believe it's going to need to be a campaign of saying, you're not alone. We know who you are. Not we know who you are. That's weird. But we know how you feel. And we have something to help you. I think that's really important.
It definitely important. Cynthia, the others on this call are from Greenville and Charleston and Columbia and urban areas that where there's a lot of large churches, there's a lot of resources. You're down in Kingstree, in a more rural part of the state, and also in a church ministry. So 2 questions to you, Cynthia, is what, being in a rural part of the state, kind of how does this affect caregiving? Are there issues unique to the rural parts of the state that we may not appreciate in Columbia or Charleston or Greenville? And within your church, to follow up on Mary's comments, how do you work within your church to get more people engaged in kind of making a federal case out of this and getting them involved?
Thank you. I think that we here have a tendency to take care of our own. And so we don't, as it was already stated, it's not something that we want to broadcast that my mother has reached a state that I have to do everything for her, or my auntie, or I think that is one of the community's culture, is to just be more keeping it to ourselves. What we are learning is that there must be the continued education, is that it's okay that mom has reached this stage in life and that we are here to support you. It is the responsibility of the church to be there for people, all people. And so we now have begun to look at it a little differently, is how can we support you? We don't have to ask you, because we clearly can see that Aunt Mary is walking slower and you're holding on to her and things are changing. We can see the changes. And so what Mary says is that we've got to own it. The church has got to own it, that this is a part of our ministry. We have got to take it. We appreciate the work coming from the Respite Coalition and from the Department of Aging that says to us, we know it's here. How can we help you? And so we have to own it, we have to educate, and then we have to go forth and say, we need help from those external resources. So it is a new thing. I'm glad that Mount Horeb is doing so well with it, because they will probably help us learn how to do some other things. But yes, different culture, same need. And so we, the church, must take responsibility and work with it.
Okay, good. Kina, you have a very interesting program where you are providing assistance and support to those who are helping others, and it was something that was of concern to Leeza Gibbons and her family, and given her the situation she was dealing with. But what are with respect to your issues, it's kind of the same question. What could we do better, and what kind of resources do you need at Leeza's Care Connection to facilitate providing, to enhance the services that you have? And money may be it, but what other kinds of things are, do you need?
Well, I think we are constantly battling sort of what Cynthia was talking about, people not wanting to reach out for help, not self-identifying, wanting to keep it to themselves. So although we reach a lot of people here, there's still so many people that aren't coming or able to come. And, overall we have 40% of people that are caring for adults, or adults that are caring for people, that is. And so that includes churches. They have that 40% in their churches. So we see the churches as a natural extension. We've thought about, expanding our services in different areas, but it just seems to make more sense to go through the churches that are already set up to do that in these communities. We've already helped several churches create their own support groups, and we still kind of walk along with them and consult with them from time to time and help them with resources. And so that's why we thought having a program for churches to help them figure out these pieces that they don't have manuals for, and essentially provide them with that manual, then those communities that aren't coming into us, whether it's because of cultural issues or maybe they're in rural parts of the state, maybe they have limited internet access, whatever those barriers may be, the churches really are the place, the key to connecting everyone in our minds. So some of the things we would like to work hand in hand with some of you guys on this panel and churches is to develop dementia education and caregiver resource manuals for the churches, like we do our own caregivers here, have volunteer training programs for them, that sort of a turnkey manual system that we can give these over and counsel with them as they set and implement these programs into place. Support group manuals would be very important. That's probably the most beneficial thing that we do. So in our minds, they could kind of pick and choose which programs seem like a good fit for their community, and we can help get them started, get things kicked off. So support groups are a natural starting point for that, but we also see opportunities to create respite care programs in the churches, which we can model after the one that we're already have set up with our neighboring church at St. Mary's here across the street. That's where we house ours. So that would be a likely extension. Even things like having memory cafes for people with dementia to have the opportunity to socialize with each other, and caregivers to do that in a social setting. Dementia choirs have become popular in recent years and is a great way to keep folks connected and socializing. So we see a lot of opportunities with the faith-based communities to reach these caregivers that have whatever barrier that they're facing to get to us. Maybe they don't trust us. You know, building that trust takes time, and but that trust is already established in these faith-based communities. So I think our biggest challenge will be connecting with the communities, letting them know this information is available and out there, and that we're here to help them in any way we can.
Terrific. You mentioned a memory cafe. What is a memory cafe, and how would one go around setting that up?
So a memory cafe is a place where people experiencing memory loss and their caregivers are welcome to come together. It's a safe place with no judgment, in which they can come be together. They do different activities depending on how it's set up. In a church, we see it more like a social setting where they can come and eat, so it feels like a cafe. And so we would kind of help them set up. We'll be mindful of some issues that could come from people with dementia. It's like how to set up a table for someone with dementia, things that the average person might not consider. It's more than just a social setting, but it's just a place that you can be with other people that get it. So any fun opportunity to connect these people, to reduce that isolation, to help them feel like they're not alone, that's our goal. And so a memory cafe could be a once a week opportunity for these people to come together in these churches and just help reduce that stigma and receive that support.
Interesting. Are you aware of how many of these cafes exist?
They have picked up in recent years, but you see them most in larger cities, not necessarily in our area, although there are a few in our area. I know a few churches in particular have started them. So I hope that they pick up in time to come. It's not something that would really take that much effort, I don't think, other than providing the food and the activities and managing it. You know, we have a cafe here at our center, and what we do already, you know, really imitates that. So it's, you know, we just don't call it that, but that's a lot of what our services here are, just to bring people together so they don't have to worry about people judging them or you know, or feeling different or isolated.
You, as I listen to you talk, I just can't help but think your resources are there to help those who are helping others. Mary and her husband Wynn are there to assist their daughter. Stan was there to care for his wife. Just kind of to the panelists, what happens when there isn't a Stan or there isn't a Mary and there isn't, they don't people don't know to go to Leeza's Care Connection, and you have seniors who need help, who may not be in a church, who are out there needing care. And maybe this is for Kay and Rachel. What is the support network for this group? How do they A, get care, and B, what resources are available to them? They may not have family. There is nobody. What happens?
I think that here in Kingstree, we see neglect, abuse happening, and we see the caregivers, as was stated early, being sick. And actually, some of them will die before the person who is still in care. That is why the church has such a great responsibility here, because the church is supposed to be here to see all of God's people. And in seeing all of God's people, we have got to address it. We've got to reduce those scenarios, and that's going to come through education.
I'm a licensed social worker, and so I can speak to this. One of the reasons we care so much about respite care and care for family caregivers is because we also recognize that it's abuse and neglect prevention. That's the reality of it for many people, and many people don't have families. Family caregivers are the largest sources of long-term care in the United States, and so for people who don't have family members that can keep them safe at home, the reality is many of them go to care facilities after they've eliminated in-home supports. And so there are a number of programs that can help provide in-home supports for people who don't have families and are trying to maintain independent living. But really what it requires is a system of support that oftentimes falls short, and there aren't enough resources for everyone who needs it. And so that's why we consider family caregivers to be such an integral component of care, because people want to stay at home and they don't necessarily want to be placed in facilities.
Well, when you talk about facilities, and given the aging of the population and the fact that South Carolina is kind of in the retirement belt, so to speak, do we have enough facilities available to, now and in the future to be able to provide care to those who need it?
I'm not a long-term care expert, so I'll start with that caveat. But from what I understand, the answer to that question is no, there's not enough. That's some of the capacity building that realistically our state is working on to make sure that everyone has care and supports in place and can access those.
Can I interject something?
Certainly.
Affordability is something that's a key to, I think if you can afford to pay, X million, if you have X millions of dollars in the bank account, and you can afford to go to a Dell Web or some fancy assisted living place, yes, I think we have plenty of those. It's like housing in general. There's plenty of $500,000 housing, but not a lot of low income housing, and I think it's the same thing with long-term care facilities. One of the things that you had said earlier, the Department on Aging wants to be a resource for everybody. That's why we're working with the churches. Our budget that we get from the government is only about 3% of the aging population. There is not enough money in the world, unfortunately, for the South Carolina Department on Aging to provide the 1 million plus seniors or adults above the age of 60 in South Carolina with all the resources that they need. That's why we came up with this faith initiative to reach out to churches and other faith-based organizations to help us meet the need of the seniors and to help them stay in their homes where they're comfortable in their communities with the people who love them and avoid going to long-term facilities. that's kind of the whole thing on our agencies. If you're watching the chat, there's a wonderful lady named LaQuanda Washington who's been asking lots and lots and lots of questions. LaQuanda is what we call an assessor, and she does a phenomenal job. And if you are blessed to live in the Santee Lynches region, which is Sumter, Clarendon, Lee, and Kershaw counties, LaQuanda, please correct me if I miss those counties. And what LaQuanda and people like her do is they go out into the community when there's not a COVID pandemic, and they interview people, what we call an assessment, and assess seniors for the kind of services that they need. Our office feels that it's so important to try to go into the homes of seniors, because a lot of times seniors don't know exactly what they need. Sometimes people will say, I don't need food, and they're calling for transportation. But when you get into the seniors' homes, you see that their pantries are bare and that they really, really need food, but they were too proud to ask for help. So that's why that's such an important thing. But the Department on Aging wants to be a resource. I was monitoring the chat, and Melanie, there seems to be a question for Melanie Dalton. Melanie, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here.
There was a question for you in the chat.
Okay, was that the one about volunteer driver opportunity, Kay?
Correct, because we've been talking about churches, so I thought it'd be an opportune time for you to talk about how churches and other faith-based organizations could help you with find volunteer drivers.
All right, thank you, Kay. Certainly, and I did put a little answer to that question in the chat with my contact information. But you know, any program such as ours is only as good as our volunteers. This enables us to provide low-cost transportation. The rider pays a nominal fee, which really only covers, you know, the cost of gas for our drivers, and drivers get reimbursed for that. With that, I should say. But we would welcome the opportunity. Shelly and I will come. We have a presentation. We bring flyers. We even bring cookies if you ask us to. And, you know, we will come and present for you just, you know, how we run our volunteer program, how it works. And many of you have ministries, seniors, people who look to volunteer within the community. And please, you can rely on us to come. So please respond. I put my email and as well as phone number in the chat. Give us a shout. We will come and present to any of your faith-based organizations. We'd be delighted. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you very much. I want to go back to Stan. You had wanted to add a comment earlier. I want to give you the opportunity to comment.
Facility-based aging is tremendously expensive, whether it's assisted or long-term. What is thrown around a lot is the term aging in place, and I think that can be done with some government encouragement, not necessarily government money. You know, we're in a political season, whether we like it or not. Politicians promise a lot, but the ability for government to meet all of our needs, it's just never going to happen. But I would love to see some partnerships, whether it's corporate, with builders to build some cottages in an aging in place community. I'm going to be picking up an older couple later this afternoon. 3 years ago, the older man wasn't using judgment. Their driveway is an inclined driveway, and they were going to take the car to get new tires on it the next morning. For some reason, he felt compelled to take the spare tire out of the trunk. There was no reason to take the spare tire out of the trunk. He didn't have a flat tire. He fell, literally crushed his hip. That house is not safe for them. It's a steep driveway, it's stairs, it's steps. There isn't a lot of good opportunities for somebody in that situation before going into an assisted living or skilled. If we had some tiny houses in a development with porches and neighborhoods, that could be, you understand what I'm saying? If that can be encouraged, that could be outside of state and federal money, just get somebody with a vision to try it.
So there's a challenge for public-private partnerships to our friends at the agency. Bryce, a couple minutes ago, you mentioned in your discussion of what you do at Mount Horeb, disability ministry.
Yep.
What does a disability ministry do at Mount Horeb?
Yeah, great question. So I saw Kate put that in the chat. I was hoping I was going to get a chance to talk about that. So our disability ministry is not a specific department as it's set up at Mount Horeb. Rather, our disability ministry, I would argue, is actually dispersed among some of the key departments. For instance, a disability ministry in the special needs department is going to look slightly different than a disability ministry in the congregational care department. But I actually just got done speaking with our congregational care pastor, and basically what our disability looks like in terms of a ministry setup is across the board. When we learn that there's a disability need of some kind, we do have resources that we send out, booklets that we send out to especially the caregivers in those situations to show them with this specific need, this specific disability, how do you go about meeting the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs. So we do have those initial resources that we send out. Like I said, it's mainly split between departments. So for instance, in the youth department, when there's a disability need that we find out about, and amongst all other departments, our first response is to let the congregational care team know that there is that need that was brought to our attention. What then happens is there's at least 1 or 2 touch points of connection. Usually that's by a phone call. Occasionally that's by an immediate visit to that person's house. Obviously this is pre-COVID. So we make sure there's some intentional touch points there to say, hey, we're praying for you. Thank you for letting us know about this need. Immediately then we'll send them a resource, like I mentioned, specifically to the caregivers to say, hey, this is how we believe is the best suited way to go about the ministry that you're getting the opportunity to do now, to give care to the person that you've been entrusted to do it to. We also pretty much delegate this to what we call homebound ministry. So a lot of the folks that we've encountered with a disability, many of those, especially physical and mental disabilities, will just keep them at home very, very transparently. And so though we won't see them on a Sunday morning, though we won't see them on a Wednesday night or throughout the week, and maybe even during COVID, though we won't see them at all because we can't visit them, we are sending them things constantly, the biggest of which is our card ministry. This, I was just told, actually, is something that is one of our biggest ministries based on the scale that we do it on within our entire church. And we have a team of people, mainly volunteer lay people within our congregation who come together week in and week out before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and I hope and pray after the pandemic as well, that sit down and write cards specifically to people. These are not just generic cards to say the same thing on each one, saying, hey, we're praying for you, Mount Horeb loves you, hope you have a great day. But it's actually very specific. This comes from the database that I mentioned briefly earlier when I was talking, that we have here at the church that many can access to see, okay, here's this person, here's this need that they have, here's where they were last talked to about it. Maybe that was a visit, maybe that was a phone call, maybe that was a card or something like that. This is how I need to write this card, make this phone call, make this visit to meet their need according to where we last left them off. So that's pretty much how our disability ministry looks right now. Again, it's not a specific segment or department within our church. It's more so delegating that ministry to the directors and their teams all across the board.
Terrific. That is just wonderful to hear, Bryce. Mary, how does your church or a church or churches in Charleston assist you with your daughter, and what kinds of support do you get from them to help you? You help so many people. What kind of support do you get from the faith community?
Ooh, you opened a can of worms.
I'm sorry.
We were rejected by about 10 churches that I'd say 4 of them actually asked us to leave. And yes, I'm not the most gentle person. I mean, I am kind of prickly. I'm trying not to be, but it's a huge problem. And until I found Seacoast Church that at least said, we don't know what we're doing, but we're willing to try. Everywhere I went said, and as I go to all these conferences across the country with the Heart of the Caregiver, almost inevitably, every special needs ministry in most churches, the churches charge the parents of the child with special needs to start the ministry. That's like asking a person with breast cancer to start the cancer care ministry. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this, you know, and the church goes, well, gosh, if you need it, why don't you start it? And you're going, that happened with us. But I've been trying to raise my hand because I think this is so important. Churches and like discussions like we're having today are great because there are so many wonderful government funded programs and things like that. But churches have forgotten that the least are indispensable, and Stan started with that today. And that we keep looking for the check writers and the building builders and the Bible study leaders and all that, but until we have our guts and liver and lungs back, we are not really a church. The people that require the most care, this is all in 1 Corinthians 12, 21 through 26. The eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you. And the church has lost her guts because she doesn't welcome the disabled and the elderly and the sick. They're on the fringes, and we keep talking about what government program or what program can we take to them. They're the essential part of our body, and until the church changes that opinion of the disabled and keeps thinking, how can we connect them with a government program that's over there? Instead of saying, how can we draw them in more because it will bless our community? We're doing it backwards. As long as we keep thinking we're going to take the people in our church and send them out to other programs, that's not the first step. And I feel so strongly, and I think one of the things that churches have defaulted to, thinking that they're doing a great service. I'm sorry, I'm the voice of, but I've lived it. I mean, we've lived through this. Is support.
That's why you're a panelist. We want your opinion on this. It's you know, what can
support groups are actually toxic hotbeds of pain, unless they have good leadership, good curriculum. And that's another thing I think the church needs to do so desperately is you need to train up leaders. And you need to train up leaders, because a support group, just opening your doors and saying we have a support group. I have been in so many support groups, and so many people that come to our support group say the support group weighed me down more than it helped me. It was just a place for us to go and bitch and complain and talk about our pain. But nobody ever helped us get out of the hole. We were just a whole bunch of people with empathy for each other wallowing in the mud. Who has the ladder? Well, Jesus has the ladder. Jesus knows the way out of this hole. I mean, you know, he stepped down from glory into the hole so he could help us out of the hole. And the church has to really start wrapping their minds around this and around these ministry stories and around this whole, that these people are indispensable. And my church family, if I go to church on Sunday and I see a whole lot of people who look just like me, we're not doing it Jesus's way. You know, and thank you, Cynthia. I love you, sister. Let's get together sometime. Because, I mean, we can talk about this all day long in symposiums, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do this. But I'm specifically talking to faith leaders out there. You have to embrace the scripture that are calling you to see these people and to minister to these people and to embrace and welcome these people all the way to be right there when they go home to glory.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say, Cynthia, would you like to follow that up?
Mary, you are so on point, and it is where my whole world is right now, trying to shift a culture within the church so that we can be who God has called us to be. Because we're playing church when we need to be the church. And we are there. We will talk because we have to find a way to make that happen. It is not enough to just say, come to the church. That's a building. We are the church, and we've got to start being the church. Yes.
Well, I hope is that as a result of this, that there will be a lot of connections made, that Cynthia and Mary and Bryce in particular will get together, and wow, that was great. Thank you, Mary. Bryce, you want to comment on Mary's comments? I mean, you're in the church.
Yeah. I mean, I would echo everything Cynthia just said too. I mean, I think that what Mary said was spot on. I think that, so we at Mount Horeb, I think, are going through a similar type of a growth opportunity. I think that our special needs ministry has been absolutely on point. I think that there are some other ministries within our church that, especially in light of COVID coming up, we have, as Cynthia said, we've continued to try to play church, but we haven't necessarily sought out to be the church. And that's been something that's been on my heart. That's a great way to put it, Cynthia. Something that's been on my heart, a burden on my heart for a good while now. And I truly think that having the conversation, though it's the first step, I think Mary was the one who echoed this first, having the conversation is the right first step. But I think for a lot of churches, that's where it stops. And there's this common phrase that I hear in the church world that's very simply, let's keep talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. And there comes a point where you have to put a period after the phrases, after the talking points, and actually move to action. And from what I hear from some of the amazing panelists we have on this call, it's people who decided to accept the call of action and not just accept the call of having a few conversations and checking off that you did. And so I think we as a church, though we're in a healthy spot at Mount Horeb in a lot of different areas, I don't think that we should ever get to the point where we're complacent with both the number of people we've reached from an evangelistic standpoint, but also complacent with the ways that we seek to still reach the ones who have already been called disciples and who are already within our congregation. So I think that from what I'm hearing, there are a ton of people on this call right now who I personally can learn from. I already have. I've taken notes during this entire call. But there's also people who are not sitting around during a pandemic wasting time, but more so looking for ways they can very strategically meet the needs of those who just straight up need cared for. It's a very simple concept that I do agree, Mary and Cynthia, that the church needs to start meeting and not just meeting about. So,
okay, we are we're nearing the end of our session, and I really just want to give the panelists maybe 30 seconds or so to just kind of summarize thoughts, observations, put a plug in for your organization. Let me start with Kina. 30 seconds.
Well, we would love for you to connect with us either virtually, by phone, or in person. You can get our information on our website. That's Leeza's careconnection.org. It's a mouthful, but we are updating it by the day and trying to make it a hub and a place for anyone, anywhere to come to. I would love to connect with some of you guys and get your thoughts and help us develop this program to be able to offer churches free of charge and help them along the way. So I'm just delighted to have connected with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. Thank you for all you do in the community. Stan, 30 seconds.
First thing that popped into my mind. It's where I am. It's probably my mantra for this season in my life. I'm all in. God, I'm all yours. I'm all in. And I leave that as a challenge. Use me. Use me. I'm all in.
Wow. Amen. Here I am, Lord. Use me. Take me. That's wonderful. Rachel?
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to, if anyone has more questions, feel free to contact us at info@screspitecoalition.org. or check out our website. The new one went live yesterday. That's www.screspitecoalition.org. And in the chat box, I'm going to post a link to the Arch Respite Network faith-based community fact sheet. So that's got some great information on ways faith communities can assist with respite endeavors.
Terrific organization, and thank you for all you're doing. Mary?
theheartofthecaregiver.com, and you'll see all of our resources there. Change your life. And please contact me. I'm happy to do training for your church. I do webinars and groups. I do entire peace retreats. 2 hours on a Saturday morning. We get like 100 people participating. I am happy to do it for your church, for your organization, for anybody that wants to go deeper. It's all about God's word. I'm here for you. I'm like Stan. I'm all in. I don't get paid anything. It's worth it. It's awesome.
That's wonderful. I mean, I've been sitting here on my other computer here, typing in these websites. And I mean, I got to tell everybody, they're fascinating. Theheartofthecaregiver.com. Go out there and see it. Cynthia.
I want to share I saw a question in the question and answers, and Leeza, we are a mid-size, I would say mid-size. We're not a large church. We're a mid-sized church. And I think that the first thing that you can begin to develop is the leadership with the heart of God, to develop the people who know why we were put here. We were called to take care of the least of these. And when you get that heart flowing, it is just going to fall in place and come natural. So I'll post my phone number. You are welcome to call me. But we are disciples to take care of all of God's children. And so welcome to the journey with us.
Thank you, Cynthia. And it's been a pleasure and a real privilege to be able to moderate this session. I hope everybody learned as much as I did about what's going on, all the wonderful things going on out there, and what we can do to help. Go out and look at all the resources that will be posted there. And I'll turn it back over to my good friend, somebody who's just a true advocate for seniors, Kay Hightower with the Department of Aging.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, everybody, on behalf of Connie Deman, the director of the South Carolina Department on Aging, Jennifer Bruton, who made an invaluable contribution to this symposium. Jennifer Bruton is the Family Caregiver Program advocate. I apologize, that's my mother. You're talking about caregivers calling in the background. And I'm talking, so I can't mute my phone, and it's telecommuting, and I'm sorry. I will get to her in a minute. And anyway, I was singing the praises of Jennifer Bruton, my wonderful partner, and our division manager, Anita Atwood, and she's in our division as Division of Community Resources. And a final thank you to the panel. This exceeded my expectations. Everybody was fabulous. Thank you, Scott, the greatest, most stupendous, terrific, fabulous, awesome moderator in the history of moderators. And for final words, I will talk to Rachal. And part of me just remembered the CEUs. Rachal told me and Jennifer told me to remind everybody, if you want CEUs, please contact Jennifer Bruton. Her name is in the chat. I also put my number in the chat earlier, and Rachal's contact information is in the chat. Social workers, if you need your CEU hours, and they were FREEE for this, we can get them to you. So I will turn it over to Rachal for final thoughts and preview for next week.
So thank you everyone for attending today. We so appreciate you. We hope that you learned a lot and that you will connect with all of our panelists for any ongoing questions or needs that you might have. We're happy to support you in your work around the state. And again, there are 2 non-contact social work CEUs available for the live presentation of our webinar today. Please contact Jennifer Bruton for that. And then next week we have on the 15th, next Thursday, a webinar about exploitation and neglect and avoiding that and how faith communities can assist in that effort. And that'll be a panel presentation, much like today, that will be led by Roger Acton from the South Carolina Victims Assistance Network. So for any questions you might have about the webinar series, please look at the Respite Coalition Facebook page or contact us at info@screspitecoalition.org. Thank you so much. All right, if no one has any other questions, then this will conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.